Hey guys, welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Today's guests are Sahil and Sayli from Dcisive Zone. They're back in studio today. We're talking about the exciting developments in technology and investment that emerged from GITEX 2024. So if you've ever wondered what Web3 is all about or how Dubai is positioning itself as a tech leader on the global stage, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, nice to be back again. Thanks for having us.
Big news last week. GITEX took over headlines. Yeah. Let's talk about it. We've seen more interest in blockchain, AI and Web3. How did GITEX, in your opinion, impact investors? What does that impact look like?
I mean, so when they had the investor summit as well before the actual GITEX event, right? So they had two separate events. So one was more geared towards emerging tech and sort of connecting investors potentially with startups, etc. And then obviously there was the GITEX thing where you could walk around the halls and see the sort of up and coming tech in various industries, and to a point where even for me, I'm living here for so long, and when I've seen GITEX live, they had to put up tents still outside of the halls. So there was so much new tech that was coming up, and it was just it's just so much stimulation. Like I was telling you earlier, it's crazy. It was a brilliant event. Yeah.
And just so we can get a little bit of background, for you mentioned new tech. There's so much focus on it, but could we deep dive in a little bit into what is Web3 for those of us who don't know?
So Web3 essentially is anything to do with, when we talk about Web2, it's like the traditional browsing, when we have, I don't want to go into too much detail. It's probably a very confusing concept, but it's like a starting point, then, detail essentially gets packaged into, a different protocol and then gets converted over on the other side. So Web3 is essentially taking out the sort of central bridge between it and connecting both points directly. So that's the reason why it's a lot faster. That's why it's called decentralized, right? So any technology that's emerging on Web3 is more often than not decentralized. So that's
basically, if you want to put it in layman's language, you would say it's like the new intervention of internet, and it's basically built on blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that works. Yeah.
Yeah, to put it in an easy way.
And key figures coming out of GITEX, they're saying there was $1 billion raised. How would this money affect the future of blockchain and AI in Dubai?
Oh man, it's a bonkers number to even imagine, to be invested over the span of 6-7 days that it was. I mean, the GITEX and the summit and all of that. Thinking about $1 billion. I mean, according to news and sources, $1 billion being invested across tech, and just in that sort of a very niche realm is just it's going to expedite the growth process exponentially. You know what I mean? You're going to be seeing 2, 5, 10x growth in the field, and obviously that can be applied across different emerging industries as well, and also existing industries, because the science is what people that's what they're investing in, and then how you translate that science over to different industry, it's very interesting to see. I'm excited.
Yeah, true. Even I feel like if you would have attended GITEX, what you would have seen is more than 6,500 exhibitors were there, and most of them were from outside UAE. So they are potentially planning to set up their business in Dubai. So you can expect a lot of tech giants to come here in Dubai, and there would be a lot of opportunity for collaboration and fostering a lot of things. Definitely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you're both down there. What do you think really stood out? For example, your residents, you've both been here for a number of years. Do you think, people seeing it for the first time, what would have stood out to them if they saw GITEX for the first time?
Honestly, if you ask me, I have attended GITEX last year as well. But this time when I went there, I was surprised too. Because there were things which were similar even last year, but this year they have taken it to next level. Mm-hmm. If you talk about, there was one specific stand, they had a separate stand which was for the government bodies, you talk about Dubai Police or Abu Dhabi Police. They have made cars. If you see the cars, you would go crazy. Mm. It's future.
It's straight out of iRobot. I seen Will Smith come out of his Audi, and back then, and I was like, oh, this is never gonna happen, and I'm so excited. But I seen it in person, and I mean what they've done, carrying on what Sally was saying. So they've taken the main hall for just exhibiting what the UAE as a nation is developing on, right? So you've got the police, you've got the tech sector, you've got the economy, the Department of Economies. And all of them, we're talking about Fujairah, Abu Dhabi, Al Ain, all the 7 Emirates posting, you know, and showing and showcasing to the world that, you know, this is what we have coming up. So, and apart from that, I mean, you obviously see the new, you know, growth in gaming, you see the growth in tech, you see the growth in various other things. But this, for me personally, like this, for me as a resident, it's really exciting to see that, you know, I'm living in a place, and I've been living here for 31 years now. So, you know, I grew up here, I've seen all of that. For me to see that this is what is to be expected as just a glimpse, it's really exciting for me personally.
So speaking of what's to be expected, like for those of us who didn't go to GITEX, we're not too involved in blockchain and AI. What will that look like for me? How will that impact me? You know, I saw things like PAMs being used at metros, and like, how are these innovations going to impact residents of Dubai?
So I mean, you know, like we've discussed, you know, things like your Emirates ID, for example. Like how we discussed, they want to unify and make it one sort of, you know, card for, you know, one ring to hold them all, you know what I mean? So they want to make the Emirates ID to be a position where you want to go into the metro, it acts as the null card. You want to pay for something, it acts as your bank card. And then that sort of ties into, you know, them wanting to develop blockchain to use the tech to make it that advanced, right? So that's how it impacts. It impacts the banking sector massively, because obviously all of your transactions are more seamless, faster in nature. It impacts housing, you know, things like, so they also exhibited a new green technology that they're working on, where they're really investing money into this in the same stand, right? So they've essentially taken the science behind blockchain and all of your records for, let's say, your areas where you live at, or, you know, an emirate, you know, in a whole. So they've essentially made it super easy to access. So when you have to check bills, you have to, you know, pay bills, etc., it all sort of streamlines and connects into each other. So you just have to connect your UAE pass, and then bang, you get all your information in one. And it's crazy to see, man. Like,
I love
it's
that
amazing,
UAE pass,
yeah.
when it connects. Yeah. It works for me. I'm like, ching, I'm
First
in.
refresh, you're like, I'm in, yes.
but I wonder, with all these things, like there's also, I saw something about at the airport, it's going to be, you know, they'll use like by facial recognition, so there'll be no smart gates essentially, and these things, I wonder, so how these will impact us as residents. Were you able to gain any insight as to how we are advancing in comparison with other countries? Like if Dubai is here, where is the rest of the world? Was there any kind of discussion on that?
I think if you would have attended GITEX, you wouldn't have asked this question, because yeah, definitely
it was crazy. I mean,
because the way they have like given a clarity about what exactly Dubai would look like. And even now, if we see, like, I feel like we're already living in the future compared to other countries. So I think we can expect a lot more coming.
And how can local businesses get involved in the emerging Web3 ecosystem? Like, is there support available for them to thrive? Did you see that type of support at GITEX, or just in general?
So, I mean, when we talk about support, it's obviously either monetary or non-monetary, right? Monetary support, like we've already seen, like they've invested, you know, nearly $1 billion in tech and in that sort of sector. So that is obviously something that the government has available to, you know, specific projects that sort of align with their vision. In terms of non-monetary, you could also look at the fact that, let's say DIFC, for example, if you're out of, or if you're focused as a startup, if you're focused in again, a specific list of businesses, so being blockchain, being development, being software, being fintech as well, they've also subsidized the licensing costs. So it's you know, almost as much as setting up in another, like a different free zone, where you could be setting up in, you know, free zone A versus free zone B. But here you have access to DIFC, and that sort of puts you into a place where, because you're surrounded in the similar sort of environment, because there's an incubator in-house. You know what I mean? So like that sort of helps out a lot in terms of you know, non-monetary support for startups as well. Yeah.
I want to jump quickly into licensing for crypto, because while I have you here, we may as well get that. It's always such a key topic that people want to ask about.
Yeah.
So are there updated cryptocurrency licensing frameworks in Dubai that Decisive Zone is aware of and that could help people with?
So for crypto, when we look at, there is an authority called WARA, and the guidelines are pretty clear about it. Compared to other countries, if you see, A lot of countries don't even recognize cryptocurrency. But when you talk about Dubai specifically, I mean UAE in general, the guidelines to set up the business is also pretty clear. So people understand what is exactly expected. So it would be easier to set up a business in Dubai rather than going for any other part of the world when we look at cryptocurrencies.
And what are the benefits, I guess, for businesses and startups to do so?
I mean, yeah. So if you're moving a crypto business out of, let's say, out of another place in the world, right? So you have access to the banking sector that's really streamlined and still settling in with the idea of crypto. So you're essentially getting in at the low point, and then by the time it scales up and by the time regulations are sort of in place and fully in check, you're already in the ecosystem, right? So you're used to it, you're using it, etc. I mean, that is the benefit. Obviously, your corporate tax benefits are a major, plus point, because if you're dealing in, let's say, pennies to the dollar and you're trading in that volume, right? 9%. If you compared to, let's say, Eastern Europe, it's 17%, right? If you're talking about Scandinavia, you're talking about upwards of 55%. So even if you're saving, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you're still paying 9%, but when you look at the flip side, you're saving about 46% in terms of, the pennies that you're earning per trade. So when that sort of adds up, it's a snowball effect, right? So I mean, personally speaking, I mean, the infrastructure that Dubai has built and, things of that nature, that's obviously a plus. But in real business terms, I feel like this is a very, it's a big, huge plus point.
100% agree with you. Before you leave us, for both of you who are at GITEX with Decisive Zone, what were your key takeaways from the event?
You want to go first? I mean, to be very honest, it sort of shows you the demand and the sort of buzz that Dubai as a nation, right, or UAE as a nation has created around the world. Because when people used to look at Dubai, let's say 40 years ago, when they show comparison pictures on Instagram and things, and you see that from a nation that was there to this point, and to be able to generate a buzz that's of such a huge volume, right? And have all these people flood in, like 6,500 exhibitors. Wow. That's a crazy number to even imagine. And when you see that in person, it just shows that a nation, even for its geographical size, may not mean anything, but in terms of what they have to offer and what the public wants out of them is hands down the wildest thing I've seen in at least in this year. I'll be honest.
There were, I think, more than 180,000 visitors just to attend the event. So it was like a huge thing. And if you look at like I told you, the exhibitors who were exhibiting the stalls and everything, the way they were promoting, I think we can expect a lot more coming very soon in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's such an exciting time to be in Dubai. And if you're interested in business setup, these are the guys to talk to. Decisive Zone, thank you so much for coming back. Yeah. If anyone is interested in any of the topics that we spoke about, if they want to know more, or if they have general questions for Decisive Zone, how can they get in touch?
Obviously, Google us. Like I always say, we're on Instagram at decisivezone.ae. Get in touch with Sally or myself, and we'll take care of you.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely day.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. That brings us to the end of the show. We're back here on tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Bye-bye.